guys? Tsmmaa here, and today I'm here to present my late games carries tier list with you. Right now, I'm ranked 30 on the NA leaderboards, and I just hit Masters, so I just wanted to share my experiences in my games and how they interact with each other. I'll have notes on the side on the rights, but I'll individually talk of the best in each tier and some standout champions that I feel like need to be touched upon. So here we go. In S tier, we have volibear, Heimer, Teemo. So these three are the best five costs in the game right now. Volibear is for his gigantic quarter board stun and um, his ability to break shields is just insane traits. Partnered with his partner in crime, Ivern, he gains the Revenant bonus, which provides a free GA for absolutely bonkers reasons, but it's there. So, Volibear Ivern is often in a lot of challengers slash current masters lol chess because these two mixed together are often the strongest frontline in the game. Moving on next, we have Heimerdinger. So Heimerdinger, you often see a lot of montages of Heimerdinger with maybe one or two rod items blow up entire boards with his little baby dragon Spitfire. And that's for a good reason. Heimer is a five cost and one of the best holders of AP items. So you definitely don't skip out on Heimers on 7 or 8 because he's a very strong unit. Teemo, although he costs a little HP, if you can afford a Teemo, he's brilliantly broken because of the fact that his ability slows attack speed. So often when you're running those Aphelios Draven comps and you try to walk up to a Teemo comp, they step into the shrooms and they have their attack speed slowed, often changing the tides of a fight. Teemo deserves the third spot in the S tier and often belongs there. Um, Garen is up here over Darius because Garen is actually the best solo frontliner in the game currently. So you'll see in your lobbies eventually that Garen will be able to solo frontline for Heimerdinger, Teemo, Syndra, Lux, all of those side carries because he's that strong of a frontliner. Stack him up with all your defensive items and he'll never die. One thing I want to talk about is Viego as an S tier late game carry. So a lot of people know of Viego's ability and think they fully understand his kit, but for some reason no one likes to run him in their comp. Viego is actually a favorite pocket pick of mine because in the 1v1 you need to fully understand how to avoid CC, how to get to their backline, and how to fully utilize Viego's potential without getting CC chained. So, if you guys are interested, my next video will be about how to fully utilize Viego and all his kits. Stay tuned, subscribe to see a little bit more about that. But till then, we'll move down to our A tier. At the top of A tier, we have Kale. So on the ladder, there's currently a player called Piba who is around 2020 Kale. Kale is a very hard comp to pilot, and if you don't know what you're doing, will often lead to a lot of eights. But the concept of four knights, three ironclad and mystic Kale, also known as the stall Kale comp, basically revolves around stalling for Kale to get to her ascension points and just raining fires of swords down on the enemies. So Kale, if you're able to pilot the comp, is probably the best carry in the game, putting her at the top of A tier. Darius, the other God King besides Garen, is the situational God King. Basically, if you didn't know, Garen shreds MR and Darius shreds armor. So putting him in your AD comms is definitely a plus if you're not running Last Whisper, which is a very rare item these days. So putting him at the top, also with his Nightbringer trait, really makes him an A tier um, carry. Moving to the next one, we have Vel'Koz, also known as Squid. So the reason why I put Vel'Koz over Karma is because Vel'Koz has the ability to one-shot. A lot of people don't know how to fully itemize Vel'Koz yet and really prefer to just, stack some least items on him. But Vel'Koz on his own will be able to just crank through Nightbringer or Dawnbringer shields because of his immense burst damage. If you know how to position Vel'Koz right, which is basically swapping the last moment to hit your right opponents, is really the game breaker between first, fourth, or eighth. So you really need to be active when you're scouting with Vel'Koz, or else it's just going to be a BG. Moving on to Aphelios. Aphelios is the best AD carry at the moment. Not because he does the most damage, but because of his traits. Both Rangers and Mystics, I mean, Rangers and Nightbringers are both really good in the current meta as their units are very strong, and his pure ability to spread his attacks throughout the fight is really important. So having a mix of Deathblade, Rageblade, and a defensive item will really put you ahead of the curve versus a Draven or an Ashe, which we'll talk about later. One noticeable mention is Mordekaiser. So you might have heard of the Mordekaiser tech by now, the Hex Tech QSS +1 Mordekaiser. I'm not accounting for that because if you account for that, Mordekaiser deserves to be S plus tier because that shit rocks the world. Um, but Mordekaiser, as a unit, just based on his traits, Legionnaire, Dragonslayer, is very important in a lot of comps because of the fact that Dragonslayer provides that 20% bonus ability power, and also the fact that he's able to knock some of the frontliners down really puts him as a premier tank liner for the AD comps, putting him at the bottom of A tier leading to the beginning of the B tier. So at the beginning of the B tier, we put Draven there. So similar to Kale, Draven is a very hard comp to pilots. Sometimes you don't know if you want to put in 3 Forgotten, 4 Legionnaire, fake trait, 2 Legionnaire, or even like 4 Knights because Draven has all these flexible possibilities, but not a lot of people know how to fully position him. If you figure out the perfect spots and the perfect item builds, Draven will probably be up there hanging in the A tier or S tier even, just because of his kits. But for now, he's really hard to pilot, but he's definitely up there as the best B tier carry right now. Moving on to the secondary AP carry, Karma. So Karma is the opposite of Draven. She's a very easy comp to pilot and slap a blue buff plus a rod item on her, and almost guarantees the top four. The thing is, Karma comps require Garen for the armor shred and volibear and the mix of Hymer Dingers. So she's really reliant on hitting these 5 cost units, and if you're not able to fast 9, you're often stuck donking on 8s, which depending on your luck, is not always in the favor of getting a lot of 5 costs, 2-star especially. But Karma, if you hit those, are definitely one of the most premier AP carries in the game. If you hit, good on you. If not, FF. Moving on, we have some special picks like Nocturne, Katarina, LeBlanc. So these assassins really uh, excel in lobbies who don't scout. So if they don't scout and they leave their carries open, these assassins will definitely chew them up and eat them. Knowing the Shadow Blue LeBlanc technology is out there, you should always learn to counter it. And if you guys are curious, just let me know in the comments. I'll definitely make a little guide on that because I have never let a Shadow Blue LeBlanc top 4 in my lobby before on purpose. But moving on to this one, we have the special guest, Mr. Jax in the B tier of the middle. Basically, Jax has kind of weird properties, Ironclad and Skirmishers. The main problem with skirmishers is that they often get trapped in a lot of frontline CCs. So may that be Rel or Ivern or volibear or even Teemo slows. So anything can really cuck the Jax, and if you put that Shadow QSS on him and he isn't able to ramp up in time, he just gets blown up, and it's just not a fun time for Jax. That's why we put him in the middle or the back end of the B tier. At the C tier, we just have some draconic units. If you don't have a real front line, like four brawlers, these units will not be able to carry you, as their Ash arrows and their Zyra little veins after the PBU nerf are not enough to just get through a Garen, Volibear, or Vel'Koz for sure, putting them at the worst tiers. Underneath, we have some support units that often hold some tank items, for example, Morgana with Morelos, uh, Kindred with Last Whisper, or even like Diana with Frozen Heart. But these aren't really the carries of your team. They're often people you want to look out for, but they're often not the carries of a team. And at the bottom, I just put for formality the rest of the champions. These are not real carries unless you reroll some of them. For example, Ziggs, Lissandra, Kha'Zix. I've seen them work, but they're not very consistent in the current meta. And unless you hit those naturally, I would advise against rolling as them for the carries. But yeah, that's just the late game carries guide tier list that I made. Let me know what you think. If you want a TLDR of this, basically run Volibear and Ivern in every one of your games if you're able to, and never skip out on a Heimer because that unit is broken.